Greetings and salutations, and welcome to episode 176 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. That's Trev. It's a full house tonight here for the first time and maybe a month and some change that all three actual Ref the District hosts. We do appreciate those who filled in, Freddie and K Dot. So thank you to those gents. And it's good to have everybody back. Trev, good to see you, sir. He is going through some thunderstorms, so
I'm going through some stuff right now.
I hope we get to keep him because he is going through some storms there. Stoner in the house as well. We got a couple people, Uptown Dre and Locked On Law, already in the chat. Today's show, we're going to, of course, have the mailbag. So Uptown Dre says he is ready for this. Got a ton of scenarios tonight. Looking forward to seeing some of those. Brian showing up here in the comment as well. We appreciate everybody who joins us live on Wednesday nights at 7:30 Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, where we stream live every week. We've done this 176 weeks in a row, and we plan on continue doing it. But we enjoy when you come out here and join the conversation. Of course, we understand that some people can't come and watch us live. That's fine. Wednesday nights can be quite busy, or in Trevor's case, as we see that he is dipped out, is, hey, things come on there. Don't worry. You can listen to us live on all of your favorite platforms. So iTunes, or iPod, the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. It's got you covered. You can use your Amazon device. I can't say it because mine will go off here and just a few feet from me. So, but you can use your Amazon devices and listen to us. If you do listen to us somewhere else, not here on YouTube, for those who are already joining us in the comment section, make sure you leave us a rating and review. It helps other people find us. Today's topics, we'll have, like I said, that mailbag and the cool down. In the game, we're going to be talking about the next greats. Can anybody on this current roster surpass the all-time greats in franchise history? We'll see if that's a possibility, who we might peg and how far away some of them are from those statistics. We'll also be talking about some camp stuff, as camp did restart and opening up. I promise Gus, if he's going to join us tonight, we are not going to spend half an hour on a guy who has not scored a point for the Washington Commanders, as he called us out last week on that particular topic.
You want to move to 2-box real quick?
We are going to move to a 2-box because we're not sure how soon Trev will get in there. So we'll do that as I must have done something there. There we go. We're good to go. Yeah, and so new kicker needed because, as we covered last week, Brandon McManus was accused of sexual assault by 2 women when he was with the Jaguars on a chartered flight. And the outcome of this is the Commanders have cut him.
Yep.
And in comes Stoner with the name.
Oh, man, I forgot
totally.
to remember. Ramiz
Ahmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason why I pitched it to those two to say it and not me, because I knew I was going to be there. It's yeah. So let's take a look real quick at this new kicker, because let's give Brandon McManus one last round, okay? And this is simply, and for us listening and those viewing right now, make sure you comment on how you feel about this. Do you feel Brandon McManus was treated fairly by being cut by the Commanders? Because his lawyer came out and said that he's innocent, and it's disappointing that the Commanders didn't do this. There's a bunch of people who say innocent until proven guilty, and that Brandon McManus shouldn't have been cut, but the team went through with it. So, Trev, now that you're back here, before you have to bail on us again due to some
real quick, I was like, you were going super slow, but your voice was on time. And then I didn't hear the music. I didn't see the intro at all. And then the intro music played while you were talking. And I was like, let me just bail. But I'm back. All right. Brent McManus, I think we did the right thing. Even if you wanted to wait to see if he was proven innocent or guilty or not, it's still a dark cloud in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
It's still him probably being isolated from the team, probably him being away from the team more. We've had to probably bring a kicker in to replace just see what happens to him. So I'm glad we just went ahead and just cut the cord now. And if he's not guilty, good for him. But if he is guilty, we did the right thing and got rid of that before it became a rerun of last season or last 30 years or something like this will happen. So, yeah, we did. It was a good idea.
Brandon McManus got screwed, at least for now. He did, but I'm going to couch that by saying the Commanders did the right thing as well. But it doesn't mean he didn't get screwed, because he absolutely did, because he hasn't had his actual literal day in court to prove his innocence in this case. But the Washington absolutely did the right thing by cutting him. They don't need any of this foolishness hanging over this organization. And it's just a great way for them the Commanders organization, to say to their employees, say to their fans, say to their corporate sponsors, who are more important than any of those that I've already mentioned, to say, we're not the old regime. When we get a sniff of any sort of issue or any sort of scandal, we're cutting ties and we're moving on, and we're not going to have that. So I thought it was the right move, but absolutely, he still did get the short end of that stick, because nothing has been proven. It's just some people saying that this has happened and it's going to court. And remember, it's not it's a civil case, right? It's not a case for going to jail or whatever. It's just to have somebody pay money. Yeah. So I think that's an important.
I have a problem with the wording of that real quick.
Okay.
It's not just about money, right? It's about holding somebody accountable. And I feel like that phrasing is important, because there's a lot of people who will use your terminology there as essentially calling these young ladies, gold diggers, and that they're only in it for the money. And I don't think that's fair to them to go that route. So the point of a civil case is accountability, is to hold somebody accountable for the actions. Right now, money is usually comes out of this, and is one of the easiest ways to get a civil suit to go away. Is you just pay some hush money, or just money in general, to settle, rather than taking it to court. So I just wanted to make sure we use some proper wording there, because we don't want to accuse these ladies of anything that they are not doing.
And it came out today in the press conference. Somebody asked Dan Quinn about it and said the Commanders organization did not know until the case was actually filed in court.
Yeah, the 27 May, when everybody else was finding out, that's when the Commanders found out.
Yeah, so there's no sort of hint that Washington may have known this was hanging over Brandon McManus in this offseason and still signed him. Didn't happen, according to them. I believe them in this instance. So that's good to know. You don't cover up is always worse than the crime. If we come to find out later that they did know and they're trying to cover it up now, then that would be bad. But I believe that to be the case, that they didn't know.
We've talked a lot about how far we're willing to trust this organization and all these new players in here, all these new staff members and everything. And I think this is where you do give them the benefit of the doubt. They said they didn't know until 27 May. They released him. They seemed genuinely upset that this wasn't disclosed. And I feel like that is one. And Brian agrees here that McManus was treated fairly. Listening to Dan Quinn, he was upset McManus didn't tell him earlier. So he didn't disclose it. And I think that's one of those reasons why you get rid of it. Or as Dominique mentioned here, this is a new regime, right? This is the start of a rebuild or recalibration, as they like to use. You're riding the wave of some good stuff here. No negative press, says Dominique.
But did Brandon McManus know this was an issue on March 14th when he signed with the Commanders? He knew it happened, right? He knew the incident took place, but he didn't know that he was going to be.
I want to say, and someone can correct us in the comments, but I want to say that he knew about this. And I think Jacksonville knew about this. This is one of the reasons why Jacksonville didn't retain him in there. And then being released as Locked On Law saying here, contract detrimental to the player in the league. It's, this was an easy thing for the team to just be cut ties. Now they still owe him some money, and there's some question about how much money, and that disclosure part is going to come into play. So I feel like we're going to still hear some more information on this one. There's, as Brian here mentioning, Josh Harris's old company owns the charter service. Just an interesting note there. So if that played a part, Doug is asking the question, would they have done the same if it were a star player? We talked highly last week about Brandon Wagner. So if this was him, would they cut ties there?
If this was who?
If it was Bobby Wagner.
Bobby Wagner. What I called him Brandon because
Brandon
my
Wagner.
brain is mush.
It's hard to say because we've never had this regime in our organization before. We don't know how they treat certain situations like this in the past, unless we could do some hard research. I bet we could find out. But judging by how I don't know, man. That's tough.
Maybe Bobby Wagner probably would not get the benefit of the doubt either, even though he's a star player. But if you start going into somebody who's been here a while, let's throw the choir boy names out there just for a fun discussion. What if it was Tress Way? What if it was Terry McLaurin in this situation? Would they cut him in a couple days?
Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne,
of course
these guys.
They would not. There's a double standard. That's just kind of the way things work. There's a double standard. They're going to stand by their guy who's been with them for 6 years, and they're going to say, let it play out in court. We believe our guy that this did not happen and so on. But because he's just a kicker and just because he just signed a 1-year deal for
$3 million.
NFL. Yeah, and NFL money is a pittance, right? It's nothing. They'll go ahead and let him go. And like I said, it was the right move, but I don't think it's fair to McManus. But
well, I do want to add here, this did open up the number 3 for somebody to potentially take. So we'll see how that
the new kicker got it.
Moves around.
New kicker already has it.
Already has it. Man, why are we giving that? I get that it's their number, kicker number because of 3, but come on. I'm so tired of the jersey talk anyways. Moving.
Who did you want?
Let one of the wide receivers take it and open up a new Tress Way number. I don't just move along with this.
Gotcha.
Let's move to the new kicker. So this is Ramiz Ahmed, who gets signed. He was last on the Birmingham Stallions of the United Football League, so spring football. He played for Chicago. He played for he was on the Chicago Bears roster.
There we go.
But he's never attempted not one NFL kick, but he has made a 61-yard field goal in the USFL, which is
and he did. He did one kickoff for the Packers in 2022 or something.
Oh, really? So he does have an NFL stat then.
Yes.
All right, good for him. Good for him. Why was
he got into the books?
Why was he on the Birmingham Stallions? Why did they sign him? He's an injury replacement. You know who he replaced?
Oh, Chris Blewett.
Do you remember Chris Blewett's claim to fame?
Of course we do. Yeah.
In Washington, what he did when he was here, he wasn't even good enough to beat out Chris Blewett.
Yeah, I know.
In the UFL.
Oh, wait, we don't know that.
He's the epitome.
Maybe he didn't get a chance.
Maybe they just signed him from another team or off the street and didn't even have a competition, bro.
Trev, he's the epitome of an NFL kicker. He's not
if
for long.
If he can make kicks, it's fine with me. I don't care where he came from, what his name is. But
I do hope that there's a kicker competition. Yeah.
He made them all today.
Yeah, which is good. And I think, training camp, you need to build up that confidence. In game times, I think that during his time with the Stallions, I think I saw that he was 4 of 7. And that 61-yarder was in the USFL, not his most recent time in the UFL. So it's going to be interesting. This new kicker doesn't exactly, give me warm fuzzies. Brandon McManus, though, was a player before the allegations that I wasn't thrilled with either because he doesn't have a leg. Anything past 45 is really dicey. I mean, great. If you get close enough, he's pretty close to automatic.
Don't get close enough.
That would be fantastic, Trev. But when we're pushing and we get stalled out, I don't want to see a punt at I don't want to see Tress Way out there fielding a punt at the 50-yard line to try to pin them back. I want to see a field goal attempt.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, which is what would have happened with Brandon McManus, because again, if you're talking a 48, 50-yard field goal, you're really risking giving your opponent some good field position with McManus. That was a weakness of his. Doesn't seem to be a weakness of our new kicker who has a leg, but I wouldn't bet on it. And I mean, you're gonna have some troubles, and you're gonna see some of that out there on Bet Online, and you can use the code BELIEVE, BLEAV, and get all the information right at your fingertips. If Stoner would have gone out to Bet Online when his Florida Gators were playing against my Oklahoma Sooners, he would have seen that the Florida Gators were underdogs and they were bound to lose that game even when they were up, because Oklahoma has the most comeback victories of any kind. He would have seen that right on his fingertips. All his betting and wagering news would have been right there for him, and he wouldn't have lost his 401k yet another time. But it's all right, because you can go out there, use the code BELIEVE, get yourself a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit, and you can bet on NBA Finals action. Boston Celtics, Dallas Mavericks. You can bet on the NHL action. You got summer sports, golf, tennis, you name it. It's right there for you. Just use that code Bet Online, where the game starts. Sorry, Trev, I was trying to get through the promo there. Why don't you go ahead and hit us with what you were trying to say?
He's 4 for 7 on the Birmingham Stallions. I mean, let's be honest. They probably didn't give that man any chances to kick that many field goals, because it's the USFL Birmingham Stallions. Probably a lot more punting than field goal attempts. So we'll take the 4-7 with the Stoner. Come on, man. Be excited.
I mean, he's not going to be here in a few weeks. He's just not.
He'll be here for preseason.
He'll be here in camp and everything, just to give the actual kicker some rest during camp. But he's a camp body at this point. They had to have somebody. They had OTAs today, which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah,
so they had to have somebody in camp as a kicker today. So they had to sign somebody. That's who they signed.
A couple people here, both Brian and Uptown Dre, mentioning how, once the playoffs are done, they'll probably sign a couple players there. Jake Bates being one of those who could come, but right now they've got a job, right? They're not going to leave their spring football to play OTAs. They'll come after the playoffs are done. By the way, I just want to draw attention to those viewers right now. Uptown Dre's profile picture, that looks like a pretty dang on sharp Sean Taylor jersey. Uptown Dre. So I just want to point that out. We did give away a Sean Taylor jersey during the draft, and we will have some more of that stuff coming. And we've got more good news coming as we head to the game to talk about the next greats in some OTA action. Stick with us. Well, I held my promise for Gus, and we did not speak for 30 minutes on kickers who have not scored a point for our Washington Commanders there in the warm-up, as we now transition to the game. Maybe Ramiz Ahmed has a chance to be the all-time points getter. Probably not a chance, but 1%. So you're telling me there's a chance, maybe less than that. It might not make the roster, but it's okay, because we believe in him, and we believe in some of these players, and we'll be talking about them, about how close they are and whether or not they can surpass some of the franchise greats. But first, I forgot that there was OTA action, even though I've mentioned how many times over the course of the last few weeks when they're going to come back. My brain, again, mush, I forgot that. So we want to make sure that we get the relevant information in first here for the game. So, Stoner, I don't know if I didn't check with you. Mm-hmm. Are you prepared for your Jaden Daniels watch?
I am, but I'm not going to officially start that until training camp starts.
Training camp. OTAs won't count.
OTAs don't quite count enough, just because they're really early on in installation and no pads of any kind. I know in training camp they don't have pads for some of the time as well, but yeah, I'm ready, but we're going to start it day one, training camp, our Jaden Daniels watch, where we will keep track of how Jaden Daniels does each and every day and put him in the good or the bad column and we'll get a good idea of how he's progressing through training camp. I'm excited about that.
Well, there was some high praise coming from national media sources on Jaden Daniels. Louis Riddick coming out and just giving some high praise, saying that Jaden Daniels is going to take that town by storm by all accounts.
Yeah.
He seems to be winning people over. He's putting in the work is probably the thing that I hear said the most, almost to the point where it's so repetitive. I'm wondering, did these guys get like a cheat sheet to be like, here are your buzzwords that you need to say when speaking about Jaden Daniels? But it seems, by all accounts, it seems to be true. He is getting out there early. He's staying late. He's putting in the work. He is a bit of a perfectionist. Trev, what are your thoughts this early in what you've seen from Jaden Daniels, who did have at least one pick during one of these training sessions?
It's pretty much everything you want to hear out of your number 2 overall draft pick that happens to be maybe possibly the new franchise quarterback. If you just watch the tape, the ball comes out of his hands so fast, so accurate, so spirally. You heard Fred Smoot talking about he was out there changing plays at the line of scrimmage last week, and he's only had the playbook for like, what, a month maybe or so? Like, it's just pretty amazing to hear a kid his age retaining so much information. But you got to attribute that to probably all the games he played in college, starting at Arizona State and then transferring to LSU. It was a bunch of games he played. So he's only getting better, and we're literally witnessing it right now, his progression. So I'm just happy as you know what to see all this stuff and hear all this stuff.
I don't know what. You're as happy as what, Trev?
Hell, baby. Raise him hail. Happy as hail.
Raising hail. Speaking of progressions, that's one of the things that John Kine kind of talked about is you got to see him go through his progressions, that he didn't seem phased against the pass rush, which is his first NFL, with quotations, pass rush that he's getting to see here in OTAs. Now, part of that pass rush, or not a part of that pass rush, rather, was Johnny Newton, the second-round pick. But we did get to see him out there with a boot, still trying to participate as best as he can. Stoner, you're usually pretty hard on players when they miss these voluntary camps. Yeah. Johnny Newton just finished surgery. He's in a boot and he's still out there. Can you give the young man some praise?
I can if it were voluntary. I believe this was a mandatory.
Oh, is this the first mandatory one?
No, it's voluntary.
No, this was last week. Yeah, this is last week of OTAs, and minicamp I think is next week. Or whatever.
Oh, that's right. That's right. 14, 15, I believe next Something week like is. That, yeah, you're right. So, okay, yeah, I'll give the man some love, and I'll give this organization some love in that they were able to get everybody out there. In years past, there's one guy missing every time. It was. I'm sorry. And Trev wanted to keep yelling at me. He kept yelling at me. It's voluntary. I get it. Know. It just means you're not bought in if you're not there for voluntary camp. Mm-hmm. And now he's a second-round rookie, and he doesn't have to be all in at this point because he's got a guaranteed 4-year deal, right? He's injured. He has every reason to not be there, but he's there. So I'll give him some love for being there, and I'll also give the organization for love for having everybody there to voluntary minicamp. I like that. I want to see an all-in attitude from it. Look at your feed, look at your Twitter feed, and look at who's not at all these different camps around the league. And some of them are mandatory camps that they're not in. You know, guys like Brandon Ayuk and T. Higgins, and I mean, just watch. Yeah, exactly. So there's all these guys who are just not there. They're not fully bought in, and they're looking for big deals or whatever. I get it. It's a part of negotiation, but I like it. Everybody's there, everybody's focused, and everybody's working towards one goal. So far, happy with participation in mini camps.
Yeah. So these are OTA workouts, and yesterday and today are voluntary. There's going to be one more on Friday, so they'll have a day off here on Thursday. Mandatory minicamp starts June 11th through 13.
Oh, okay.
So that's when it's going to start being mandatory. And then, of course, their preseason schedule set. They've got 2 joint workout sessions with the Jets in Miami. So that's going to be some good time coming up there as well. Sticking with the defensive side of the ball, Joe Witt Jr. kind of pushed back on naming starters and instead insisted that there's going to be 18 to 19 guys in a rotation and several different packages that they're going to use. And so it's not about necessarily who's the first 11 on the field, just how well the defense plays as a whole. I think personally, this is kind of shading, and shading meaning not showing shade to this person, but kind of protection for last year's first round pick, Emmanuel Forbes, who's likely going to not be cornerback 1 or 2. He's fallen down the roster a little bit, but there seems to be maybe some packages that we will see Emmanuel Forbes in. Am I just being too jaded, Stoner?
No, I think you're right on. They're doing a good job of protecting these guys and sort of keeping the media storm away off of them, especially the guys that you are concerned about. And Forbes is one of those guys you're concerned about. So I think it's a good on him for doing that. But I love, if you haven't watched a Joe Witt Jr. press conference, do yourself a favor and watch that, because he will fire you right up. And so I like this idea that he's not naming starters, but I think at some point you have to. At some point you have to say, yes, Emmanuel Forbes is going to play a lot, but no, Emmanuel Forbes is not going to be in on our basic packages. So he's cornerback 3 or 4 or whatever it is. And although it's not okay because of where he was drafted, it's still okay in that no matter where you're drafted, they're going to put the best guys out there. But I love Joe Witt Jr. and everything he's done so far. He's got me excited to see a defense that, let's not forget, was 32nd in the league last year in almost every category. They were horrific. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be fun to kind of see the improvement of the defense.
It's going to be hard not to improve. I mean, you have a huge roster turnover and you started at the bottom. Now we hear Trev. You liking what you're seeing from our new defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I love his energy. That's who he is. He's not putting on a show for the cameras and the microphones. He's pretty much the same person all the way around since we brought him in here. I like his response. 17, 18 guys. There's no starters, because I think that lets people know that we're all in this together. Like, we're one defensive unit. Yeah, we might have the Jonathan Allens and Deron Paynes and the Bobby Wagners, but as a defense, we're going to make some noise as a whole. And I think that's a message he's giving by saying we don't have starters or whatever. Because once you get, some players, when they get that starter name attached to their name, they start playing different. They start Chase Young, start doing their own thing on the field, not following the scheme. And he's on his third team, and a lot of freelancing. So I think his answer was spot on. I'm so excited to see what he's going to do with this defense. I didn't know who the hell Deron Bland was until last season. So that just makes me hype for Emmanuel Forbes or a Benjamin St-Juste or, anybody in that defensive secondary for us. So I'm excited.
I think what's also that I really like, and things we've heard out of training camp so far, is the guys that they've signed to their long-term deals. And this goes forward on offense as well, but defensively especially, Armstrong and Frankie Louvu. These guys are getting mad praise from this organization. And sure, you have your Jeremy Chin and your Bobby Wagner and your Fowlers and Ertz, guys like that who are just on 1-year deals, basically. That's fine. But the guys that you've given money to, the guys that you expect to be here for 3, maybe even 4 years, they're doing some special things so far. Joe Witt Jr. loves Frankie Louvu. Loves him like we all do, right? We all love Frankie Louvu.
Great
and everything.
Signing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great signing. We think he's going to be a difference maker on this defense. So I think it's great that guys who are here for the long term are the guys who are already standing out in these mean nothing OTAs. They mean something to us, but in terms of who starts and who doesn't and who's making plays and all that doesn't mean a whole lot. But just to know that these guys are making a difference especially for this defense, that gets me pretty excited.
Yeah, I do think that these matter probably more than what you're trying to say, Stoner. But I mean, it matters for those guys who are at, 45, roster spot 45 and up.
Mm.
That's who this matters for, right? Like if you're
Yeah,
one of the
sure.
starters or a backup, if you're one of the first 44 guys, you're not really worried too much about this. Your place is really set unless something really bad happens, you're good to go. But from 45 going on, that's where this kind of gets there.
Those matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter to them. I'm saying in terms of the sort of things that we as fans get excited about. Well, how many sacks did Cleveland Farrell have in OTAs this week? How many catches did Dotson have? Those kind of things don't matter because it's just kind of the OTAs.
Yeah, we like to see the mechanics, though. We like to see them, a defensive end, an edge rusher kind of blowing past the pads, right?
Yes.
We like to see the offensive linemen hold strong. We like to see some pretty dots from Jaden Daniels and great catches from the wide receivers. So I think, those are the sexy things we like to see from there. And, one of the things that maybe wasn't as sexy in years past, but is the hot topic this time out, this offseason, as there was changes to the kickoff. Now we're seeing a whole lot of mix in for who is catching kicks during special teams drills. Zach Selby notes that Kaz Allen, Emmanuel Forbes, Eckler, Milne, Tyler Owens, Jahan Dotson, Austin Jones, Davian Davis, Mike Sanistril, Jeremy McNichols, Demir Bird, Brian Robinson, B-Rob out there during these drills. What do you make of hearing all these names? I mean, B-Rob is a very fascinating name to hear. Eckler was an interesting one to hear as far as putting in the space. I mean, it makes sense talking about a running back being able to find holes and all this other stuff, but normally you go with the speed. So, Trev, what do you think about this list of players, including Emmanuel Forbes, as potential return artists for the Washington Commanders?
I think this is a sign of us still learning the new kickoff rule, all the details and the logistics behind it. Some names in there you could potentially see as kickoff and punt return even. And some names are like, what? Like you said, B-Rob. I didn't know Eckler was back there. Mike Sandistra, our slot cornerback that we drafted, dog from Michigan. Who else did you say? Dax Milne. Haven't heard that name since you just said it. Tyler Owens, I think, is a running back. Jeremy McNichols is a running back. It's a lot of running backs back there. So I think that's just, like I said, just a telltale sign of we don't know what we're doing on kickoff, so we're just going this way and see what happens. So
I think it is interesting in that they have to figure this whole thing out because they have no idea how it's going to play out. They've never done this before. They don't have these coaches. The special teams coach is not out there saying this is what's going to work and what's not going to work because he's got no idea because they've never done this before, literally ever in their coaching career, and these players have never done it in their playing career, and now they're going to go out and try and execute it. So I think it's going to be a little janky in the first couple of weeks, especially in preseason while they figure it out, and then figure out, do they need a bruiser back there? Do they need a Brian Robinson, or do they need a guy with the quick twitch movement like a Jamison Crowder, or do they need just a speed guy who can just go get the ball and go? They don't know. They got to figure it out. And again, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with a certain roster spot. Let's just say Jeremy McNichols really stands out in these drills in returning kicks. You got to find a roster spot for him, and he's going to be the kick return specialist, and that's it. And fifth string running back or fourth string running back.
Or fourth string,
Yeah. And so you're going to lose a roster spot if you have to use a guy like that. And that's why hopefully somebody like a Crowder or an Eckler or a B-Rob or the first guy in like Sanistril, a guy like that, you don't have to use a special roster spot just for that guy.
Well, two notes here, Stoner. Jamison Crowder, not one of the names listed.
Oh, no. Okay.
Not one of the names that was out there, maybe for other reasons. Could be as simple as they already know what he brings as a returner. They don't need to see him work those, whereas the other players they haven't had much tape on. Could be a sign that Jameson Crowder might not be long for this roster. We don't know what's going on there, but he wasn't one of there to do that. Locked on Law here, disagreeing with your second point, which is not using somebody who is going to be seeing significant minutes on offense or defense for your returner, because you don't want to injure that player. You know, losing your starting safety is the example Locked on Law here used, where you don't put one of these, like if you have Eckler, who's your running back 2, get injured on a kickoff return, now you're hurting because, you know, especially because C-Rod, it's not going to fill Eckler's shoes, right? That's not how that's going to work out. So you don't necessarily want to risk it. Or Brian Robinson, your bell cow back, the guy who you expect to give the bulk of your touches to, gets injured. Now you can rely on Eckler, but you're kind of, going now deeper into the roster where you didn't want to have to.
Yeah. And we talked about it last week, Nathan, the number of returns that the kick returner is going to have. In years past, Antonio Gibson maybe have won a game because most of them were out of the end zone. Well, with this new rule, the kick returner is going to return every single kick. So that's 7 times that they're going to get hit per game on average over the course of 17 games. So you're right. You probably don't want to have a regular back there. And again, that goes back to a roster spot. Maybe you do have Jeremy McNichols be the guy, and you got to carry him as running back 4 when normally you wouldn't have running back 4 on your 46, 47
not just running back 4, but also dressing running back 4.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's probably the more impactful part, right? That's where you're going to have to really kind of roll the dice and play this one out.
And do you dress running back 3 instead? Because if we do keep 4 running backs and McNichols is a return guy, and you have B-Rob and Eckler, who's running back 3? Does he dress 2, or are we dressing all 4, or would you rather have running back 3 be your returner so he can dress and you have 3? It's tough, man. It makes it tough for the rosters.
Yeah, it's going to be different this year on how
the 53-man roster building is going to be quite the discussion.
And half the names you mentioned, I could see them locking down that spot by themselves. Like we signed Amir Bird. Yeah, he's been a receiver at the Patriots somewhere else, but he could be that return guy for us and not necessarily a receiver. Dax Milne, if he wants to make the team, maybe he could be that returner for us and not be a wide receiver. So and like Kaz Allen, like all those type players. So
where does that come from, Trev? What roster position does that come from? Do you not carry 10 offensive linemen instead? You do 9?
Right. Or do you not carry 7 receivers? Yeah, exactly. So some position group is going to take a significant hit when it comes to making rosters in the season to come. So we'll see what happens.
We had one question early. We got mailbag happening in the cool down. So make sure you get your questions in either now and we star them, or you can wait till the cool down to ask. But we had one in reference to the OTA stuff, and it's from JG. Do you guys have any other takes from today's press conference? Is there any other things? Trev's already shaking his head yes, so we're going to go straight to
the group chat earlier. It was our center, Tyler Bediash, but Dan Quinn has a nickname for him already, and it's called Badass. So I'm that's pretty cool. So Tyler BA, because apparently this got brought up in a press conference a couple weeks ago about the no huddle. I think B-Rob said, we'll be doing that. And then Tyler today said, with a pause, there'll be some of that in there. We're learning things like you might see us huddle all the time, then you might see us not huddle. So I think it's interesting that we're going to see some no huddle in this offense. I mean, you have 2 starters who are pretty much confirming that we will see it this season. It's just a matter of how much and how often. But I mean, and just by hearing Tyler talk about it, he's just focused. He's experienced center from the Dallas Cowboys. DQ knows him. So I'm just hyped. No huddle offense. This is going to be a completely different team, guys. Like it's been weird. The past seasons, we have different players.
Yeah.
Right. We have different players. We draft big names. We sign big names. And somehow, some way, the same gameplay is on the field on display. But this year, we picked all different, and it's going to be so different than what we're used to. So no huddle, I'm here for it. Let's go. Whatever works.
I think what was mentioned before about Joe Witt Jr. and every time he steps in front of a mic, he gets you fired up. I think that's always a big thing. And this wasn't necessarily during the press conference, but just wanted to bring up, and sorry if I'm jumping on one of your topics, Nathan, but the taking out the old turf and putting in natural grass.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really, really big deal. And it's also foretelling based on how much it costs to do that, which the estimates are about $1.5 million to do that. They're not leaving that area whenever they decide to do their whole stadium and all that. They're investing so much money into the facilities there that
Ashburn's the place now.
Ashburn's still, it's going to be their headquarters. I don't know if it's gonna be the field, but I think it's going to be their headquarters still.
If they go to the DC site, right, there's not necessarily a whole lot of space for all that extra things that we've seen them try to throw in, another practice facility, team headquarters and all that kind of stuff. That's a really tight space to be able to throw all that. So that's kind of an interesting take on it. But yeah, I was going to bring up the AstroTurf. That's been there since I think 1992.
Mark Sherrill tweeted that.
Oh, really? 92.
Yeah.
It's been
92.
And it's interesting when you look at it, when we've gone to camp to look at it, they don't even use that. That's where they set up like their hospitality tents. And
they haven't been able to use it, is what the beat reporters were talking about, was that it was in such disrepair that they haven't been able to use that for decades. But because of the cost,
because it was in bad shape, or
it was in bad shape. It wasn't. It was. I mean, that the turf, especially when you're using it, that AstroTurf, it has a shelf life.
Yeah.
And when you're talking it for practice, like not just a game situation, AstroTurf in a game situation, you can get away with having that for a decade plus because you're only playing X amount of hours or minutes of football on it, right? But when you're talking about practice sessions that you're going out there for 4 to 8 hours a day, we're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. That's a lot of wear and tear that goes on something that isn't meant to have that much wear and tear. And the fact that it's just been sitting there, like you said, Stoner, kind of unused because they roll out the VIP tent, but outside of that, I mean, what do? They throw out a couple of, the bicycles and maybe some equipment for some guys to do because you can't run on it. You couldn't do anything with it. And then cost is significant, at least enough. I don't know if it's significant enough to agree with you, Stoner, that it means they're going to stay in Ashburn, but significant enough that this goes to what we've talked about recently about, winning off the field, right? And winning in those margins that the team keeps talking about. That's where they keep trying to throw it, right? Saying, hey, we got to win in the margins. You only get so much in the salary cap. So how can you win outside of that? And this is one of those. Improving the practice facilities is a huge deal. This, by the way, in case you haven't been out to Ashburn, not just as a big deal because it's been there so for so long, they haven't been able to use it. It also just happens to be the closest field to the practice facility.
Yeah.
They have to pass through it to go to the actual fields. And so now they're going to have usable space that's right there for the team. And I think that's a huge, huge deal.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting also that not using that particular field because of the turf, they still had 3 fields that they used, 3 full-size football fields that they used. Apparently that's not enough, or else they wouldn't bother with it, right? So now they're going to have 4 full fields to use. And it was mentioned in the previous OTAs, or maybe it was rookie mini camp, whatever it was, that Jaden Daniels and Mariota were on 2 different fields at the same time, getting the exact same snaps, the same number of snaps and running the same plays, but on 2 totally different fields so that they didn't have to alternate, which I think is a big deal. Not for Mariota, who cares, right? But for Jaden Daniels to not have to wait on reps. He can take every single rep, but so can your second stringer. And so now they can do this on defense as well, assuming you have all your guys out there and healthy, is you can run 2 offenses and 2 defenses on 4 different fields or special teams or whatever. It's just interesting that they thought 3 fields wasn't enough. And they came in and said, we need that. It's been sitting there and it's unused. We need that. So go put some money into it. And they did, which is, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I like it. And I think that we're going to see some more improvements. The fact that you're talking about what is new to us, I don't know about any other team doing that, but they've talked about it. The coaches have talked about how, using the time they have efficiently is big for them. Like they want to do that. And I think that speaks volume to, one, how dedicated the staff is, but then also how deep the staff is. You have to trust your staff to be able to do this. Dan Quinn obviously trusts Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr., but for them to be able to split their time, Cliff Kingsbury is probably sitting over with Jaden Daniels. So who's over with Marcus Mariota?
Yeah.
You have to have somebody who trusts over there. Joe Witt Jr. has to trust his defensive staff to implement his new defense. Yeah. Both of this is a new offense. This is a new defense. And for them to split time like that, they have to have everybody on the same page.
Good point.
And if they have everybody on the same page, this is going to be an awesome situation.
Yeah, those are good points. And again, all of this goes into what Trev was saying a little bit earlier about not just with players, but the way they've been so deliberate about coaching staff, scouts, front office, players, all of that they're taking from everywhere. They're taking what they believe are the best people from so many different positions, and then coming into this one cohesive unit. And then, like you said, Cliff Kingsbury deploying Tavita Pritchard, for example, off with Jeff Driscoll to make sure he's ready to play if needed. And he understands the offense and understands the culture that they're trying to put together. All good points, and it's refreshing. It is a lot because it's different. It's a whole different organization of people.
That's exciting.
But it's exciting. Sure. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
I'm still not convinced.
Why would you want to do the same thing that's got you, losing 30 years in a row, right? Like,
what did you say?
I'm not convinced that it's going to necessarily lead to wins in year one, but I am convinced.
We're waiting on Trev's all dub count too. We gotta get that going.
Yeah,
so, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, of course it's gonna happen. It's an annual tradition with that. So we can't do it. I don't have any other ones that you guys. The AstroTurf is gonna be my last one. If you guys have anything else, or if you have something in the comment section, make sure you share it here. So again, they'll be on break tomorrow. They'll be back Friday. If there's anything significant Friday, well, I can't do it because it's actually, I'm going to give a shout out to my little man who's turning 11 on Friday. But we will have some content for you guys. As promised, we're going to get some stuff out there. But happy birthday to my big guy.
Happy birthday, Gavin.
Who's turning 11. It's going to be exciting. Nerf battles in the backyard. We don't have fancy AstroTurf or $1 million budget, but we do have a lot of fun here. And we do have a lot of fun here on Ref the District with you joining us in the chat. So make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're here on YouTube, as we appreciate that. Everybody kind of helps. It helps other people find our content. I was on a show or a recording just yesterday. They happen to find it because of all the good work that you're doing in the comment section, made it show up on their feed. So they happen to watch our March Madness QB edition. And so they invited us out there. So you'll want to check out that. We'll make sure that we share it when the road show publishes the content. We'll make sure everybody gets to see that. Fantasy football driven, and you get to hear some of my thoughts on some of our players when it comes to fantasy football. But right now you're going to hear some of my thoughts on our current players and how I feel they might stack up against some of the greats. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't sleep on some of these players, Trev, and you don't have to sleep either. If you head out to don'tsleepenergy.com, use the code DISTRICT to get yourself 10% off your entire order. whether or not it's merchandise, their energy drinks or energy shots, they've got you covered and they're going to keep you up and your brain won't have to be mush. I'm out of my don't sleep energy, which is why my brain is mush right now. And I'm calling Bobby Wagner, Brandon Wagner. And what was the other one that I've completely butchered?
I think it was just Brandon Wagner.
No, there was another one that the Birmingham Stallions or something like that. I had, oh no, Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics is what I think I said. You don't have to have a Nathan mush brain if you use don't sleep. This is what happens when you're off don't sleep energy. So you don't have to do that. Head over to Don't Sleep Energy. Use our code district. Let them know that we sent you. Support a local company and a DMV company. So don't sleep makes you great. We got there, Stoner. I got through that. That was a little difficult.
Maybe you need to sleep.
Probably do.
Maybe you need to do the opposite and just go take a nap.
No, I need this because I've mentioned before. I'm fostering two babies. They're great. They're fantastic. The little one, I took all the shifts last night. So from like 12:30 on, I think I went to bed around 10:30, and every 2 hours I was up for 45 minutes and then sleep for 2 hours, back up for 45 minutes. So I need some don't sleep in my life. So I'll have to place that order there. Yeah, that's a fun one. I knew that was going to get a comment as soon as I said it. So Gus, thanks for that. I'm not going to share it for our audio listeners. You're just going to have to come out and see the comment itself. Let's talk about these next greats here. This is a conversation I wanted to kind of have here, and as we were still waiting for a season to kind of get started, there's a lot of excitement here with these players. Some of them anyway. So where can they possibly stack up next to the greats? But before we can even get there, I wanted to address Locked On Law's early comment, which is Commanders aren't Redskins. Commanders cannot break Redskins records. I will say quickly that I disagree with this, but I want to pitch it to one of my co-hosts here to get their take. Gentlemen, one of you start off with your thoughts on this.
Well, just call it like it is. It's organization / team record. It's we say
it's Washington,
Commanders
no matter
and
what.
Redskins because that's the nickname, but it's the organization as a whole. So let's not get too kind of nitpicky on these sorts of things. Yes, you are technically and literally correct that the Commanders are not the Redskins, but that's just trying to poke the bear and and say and start an argument or whatever.
I mean,
it's the organization.
If that's the case, throw Washington football team in there. The Commanders aren't Washington football team or Redskins. So, but that just sounds silly because we're all Washington no matter what the nickname is. So it's just one organization, like Stoner said.
Yeah, and
if that's the case, then don't celebrate Darryl Green. Don't celebrate all the greats.
Yeah, why are you retiring
Sean
those
Taylor,
numbers, right?
all Sean Taylor stuff. Get it out of here because they're not Commanders. They're Redskins. So take the statue down. Get all that. No, we're not going to do that. That's silly. Yeah, so it's all one organization.
That's right. Good call. I like that part.
Yeah, that's a great one here. So let's talk about these current players and where they stand. JG here. Terry is the obvious great, but I don't think he'll be a Commander's record holder. And that might be the case because it is going to take a bit here as I clean up the backgrounds to make sure I have the right information here. As far as receiving, Art Monk currently holds the record at 888 receptions, 12,026 yards.
Yeah.
And that's going to be quite the feat for our young Terry McLaurin, who isn't so young anymore as he's going to be 29 by the end of the season. Currently, Terry McLaurin has 378 catches for 5,283 yards. Now, he is averaging 14 yards a reception, which is pretty big, but Art Monk was at 13.5. Does Terry McLaurin have the longevity or a breakout season in him to be able to close this gap? Because you're talking right now, it's nearly 7,000 yard gap between these two players.
How many years did Art Monk play?
I was just about to look that up because I foolishly didn't pull his up. I have just the team records in front of me, but I did want to see Art Monk here. He played for Washington. He played quite a few seasons. He didn't play, he played with the Jets in Philadelphia before that, but he played from 1980 to 1993 with Washington.
So 14 years.
14 years.
14 years. Yeah.
And Terry's on year what? 6?
He'll be entering year 6 right now.
I mean, if we got a quarterback.
Oh, we've been saying that too long.
I feel like we've been waiting for Terry McLaurin to have a breakout season every year, right? Like we're like, hey, this is the year he's going to break out, and it doesn't happen. He doesn't have an Amos St. Brown type year where he just has 1,500 yards. Now, I will say in Terry's favor, he is the first Washington wide receiver who has broken 1,000 yards in 4 of the first 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So he's starting off strong.
Right.
I think 4 straight though, right?
And 4 straight. I think that might be the more accurate one. Yeah. So Gus here hitting it with this as well. That's pretty strong. Now, each of these 4 years, he's just kind of barely breaking it. You know, I mean, he did have 1,200. No, he didn't have. He had 1,191 the year before last, and 1,118 back in his sophomore season. But I mean, he's not really blowing it out the water. But I mean, still 1,000 yards. He's going to get there, right? I mean, if he plays 12 seasons, that should get there. But will he have the longevity, Stoner?
Well, when they bring in, you know, Jamar Chase in a couple of years, and he takes over as wide receiver 1, and Terry McLaurin ends up, you know, in Baltimore or something as wide receiver. No, I'm just kind of playing, but he'd have to. I mean, Art Monk was here forever, and if I remember correctly, and I know I don't, but I'm close here. When he retired, he was top 3 all time in those categories, all time. And the game has changed. There's a lot more passing now.
I actually want to say he would finish top and when he retired.
Yeah, he was number 1.
The top number 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lofty goal. A lot of things have to break right for you. You got to stay healthy. You got to have good quarterback play. You have to have pretty decent teams. Because just think if they did have decent quarterback play, a little bit better quarterback play, and better teams throughout all of this, then his numbers would probably be even higher. And I don't know, do they count postseason receptions and yards in the records? Because, you know, there's an extra game, 2, sometimes 3 that could be added to those numbers, right? But he never gets to the playoffs. Been forever since this team's been to the playoffs, and he's never been. So, you know, it's gonna take quite a bit for them to.
However, he does benefit from the extended seasons now, Stoner. It's no longer a 16-game season.
That's fair.
Art Monk actually, I want to say, played. You know, he did have 16. Well, he did have a couple of shortened seasons with the strikes. So there was that. So he played all in total for his career. He started 194 games. Terry McLaurin currently sitting at 80 games. I mean, there is a little bit of a gap. I will say also Art Monk played until he was 36 with Washington.
I was about to say, so how old was he when he either retired or left Washington? He was 36?
36. He started at 23, which is a year younger than Terry McLaurin, and then played until he was 36.
I can see Terry playing until he's 35, 36.
With Washington, though, that's the thing.
Okay,
I don't
here's
know.
the thing.
You got to think Art Monk played pre-free agency for most of his career. And so Terry McLaurin, he's going to end up a free agent at some point. You got to figure.
I think if we had kept Ron and the staff and Sam Howell, I don't think Terry would be here for another 6 or 7 years. I think he'd probably be traded or asked to be released, or something would happen after this season. But now that we got a whole new program here and a quarterback, I kind of want to see how these next year or 2 plays out to see if he'll stay here for another 6 or 7 years. I think if we make the playoffs the next 2 years, I see him staying. But if we maybe, you know, keep losing, I see Terry being a nice trade target. So it's hard to say right now. But just by his judge of character and his loyalty to the franchise already, yeah, I can see him here for another 6 or 7 years trying to break Art Monk's record. I mean, for sure. But
I mean, 6 years to get 7,000. I mean, that's not
it could
unheard
happen
of. I mean, 1,000, keep getting 1,000-yard receiving. He's going to get real close.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
so he has a shot. He has more of a shot now than if he did, say, last year. We kept everybody from last year. He has more of a shot now than then, I think.
So he actually is in the top 5 for receiving yards. I'm not sure why this page hasn't properly given his due. I wonder if it's because they're only listing here. I'm on the team page. It is listed as history career stat leaders, but Chris Cooley's number 5 at 4,700, and Terry McLaurin's above that with his 5,200 yards. Charlie Taylor's number 2 on the list at 9,000. That's only 4,000 yards away for Terry McLaurin. Do we think that is more achievable? I mean, obviously it's more achievable, but I mean, do we think that is a realistic target for Terry McLaurin, is to finish number 2 on the list?
Yeah.
I mean,
because then to get to number 1, that's another 3,000, bro, or even maybe 4 to break it.
Mm-hmm.
So
how many games has Terry missed in his first 5 years?
Terry McLaurin has had 3 seasons in a row at full 17 games. He missed 2 games the year before that, or 1 game before that, and 2 the before that.
So 3 total.
Yep.
In 5 years. So he's proven that he can stay healthy. And if you remember last year, in training camp or in one of those preseason games when he hurt his toe, like, what was it, like the last play of the game or something like that, a meaningless play, and he hurt his toe or something, and that really bothered him throughout, but he still played, right? He plays through injuries. I remember he had a shoulder one time that he played through. The guy will play through injuries. He's tough. He doesn't have issues with injuries, so we'll see kind of what he does in terms of his longevity, full-time, throughout his entire career, and will all of that come with Washington? That's a great point, Trev. If this team just kind of continues to lose, at some point he's going to become trade bait. I mean, there was talk of it last year, was there not? When they were losing, there was a lot of Terry talk, right? Yes, it was. And so as he gets older and his value starts to drop, you're going to have to try and get something for him if it comes to that. I don't think it's going to come to that, but you're counting on him staying healthy up into his 30s and being productive up into your 30s. That's a different category than most NFL wide receivers. There's you can count on one hand 30-plus-year-old wide receivers right now who are getting 1,000 yards per season. It's a young man's game. It's a Jefferson game, and Deebo Samuel who's already breaking down, and those got Jamar Chase type receivers that are doing all the work now. So to get up there in your 30s and still do it, that's hard to do, but Terry's proven that he can. We've never had a complaint about his toughness, about his injury issues.
Very reliable.
Very reliable.
Very reliable. So Gus is asking here, do we consider Terry McLaurin greater than Santana Moss in the pantheon of Washington wide receivers? Going to go as far as listing off his top 5: Charlie Taylor, Art Monk, Bobby Mitchell, Gary Clark, Santana Moss. It's a heck of a list.
Not yet. I'm sorry. Not yet.
I think it would be too early to put him in the pantheon. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up later. I think, and if you look at Gus's list, you can kind of tell where Gus is on the age scale of things, right? Because if you're talking a newer player, not newer player, but if you're talking a newer fan, think about some of the guests that we had on, Freddie and K-Dot. I mean, Trev and I are still reasonably young. We haven't broken 40 just yet. We're not really going to think of Charlie Taylor when it comes to that. We're more high on, maybe not even Bobby Mitchell. Even Art Monk is pushing, limits there for us, because most of us were in diapers or running around the backyard playing, games and climbing trees when Art Monk was playing. Santana Moss is a guy who we hold in high regard for the time that we remember as fans. And so I think Terry McLaurin's going to jump up the newer fans. And I think that is what's excellent here in this segment that we're talking about is these are the players that we want to watch football for, right? Like, we've talked about some of the players, here before on this list from Gus, that was why people tuned in. That's why people became Washington fans. Terry McLaurin is a reason why somebody, wants to be a Washington fan. And so even if he doesn't surpass them in the records books, still having that next great, maybe top 10 all time for even those old hats, I think would be fairly significant.
I only have one, I think, from this current roster that I think can become an all-time Commanders great. Only one.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Terry McLaurin either. Now I think Terry McLaurin but I only have one. And I don't know if you guys want to take a guess at who I think it can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's one heck of a segue. You've brought us into the next person here.
Who did you say?
He said Tressway.
I mean, I didn't even think about Tressway. Is Tressway the best punter in team history?
Probably.
Right? Okay, next. Move off the punters. But yeah, I think
I'm trying to guess your one person.
If I had to take a guess, I think you're just going to go with Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels has the opportunity to be, I'm going to say it, to be the best quarterback in Washington's franchise history. He has that opportunity. He has everything going for him. He has every skill that you could possibly
better than Doug Williams
for a quarterback. He has
Doug Williams isn't even top 5 in passing
opportunity in front of him with all the coaches. He has weapons all over the place. And that was my last point that Gus is putting up there. He doesn't have a high bar to get over. That's the biggest thing.
He doesn't.
I have been very critical of Washington. I've said it before, and I know some people disagree with me. Washington hasn't had a franchise QB. So Jaden Daniels, Todd Collins, Jared here. Todd Collins kept the season alive to make the playoffs.
He's got a bar.
2008.
He's got a bar.
Yeah, I mean, the bar is so low when it comes to that, and it's not really. I'm not trying to disrespect Joey T or Sonny Jurgensen, Sammy Baugh. Mark Rippon is listed as 4 on this list, and he wasn't a franchise guy, right? Joe Theismann, he did great things, and he's at the top of this list, but I don't consider him a franchise quarterback. You got to have, I think, a decade worth of playing at a high level, and Joe Theismann, unfortunately didn't. I mean, we were robbed of some extra Joe Theismann time, so some of that's not his fault. But like Sonny Jurgensen and Sammy Baugh, I mean, those were so far back. But even those two gentlemen, I don't feel like they met the longevity, label of a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, they're right there, I think, with like Kirk Cousins, who was a strong quarterback for a few years with the team, but not necessarily the franchise quarterback. So Jaden Daniels, very low bar. Speaking of how low that bar is, I mentioned Joe Theismann, top of this list, with 25,000 yards.
Yeah.
That's obtainable within 6-7 seasons.
That's right.
It's not unrealistic to say Jaden Daniels might get that before his second contract ends, assuming he stays,
he will,
healthy and is what we want him to be.
To be the old head of the group, I think Sammy Baugh was a franchise quarterback. He was here 15 years maybe in Washington, somewhere. I mean, he's not the league leader in passing yards because it's a way back in era, right? A totally different era. I mean, they were barely throwing the ball back then, but he still had times where he was throwing 20-some touchdowns. He is the best. To me, he's the best quarterback in franchise history.
Yeah.
But it's so long ago. What did he play in the 40s, I think, is when Sammy Baugh played?
Very, very long.
Yeah, but he played a long time for Washington. I believe only Washington. I think I might have that correct as well.
Yeah, right now he played from 37 to 52 for Washington.
Oh wow, yeah, that's 16 years.
He has the longevity. I guess I think it's more along the lines of he played tailback from 37 to 43. He was listed as a QB, but there was often we always love our backup quarterbacks. And that was the DC's first one. Was who do you prefer, Sonny or Sammy, right? And so they went back and forth between those two. And so I don't know.
Yeah, just trying to throw that old. But again, I mean, we have to go back to the 40s to find the highest bar in this organization's history, so which is crazy. So I think Jayden Daniels has that opportunity in front of him. He has the ability. He has everything. And we have to, as a fan base, we have to, at this point, stop being afraid to be vulnerable and put it out there that we think that Jayden Daniels can be the best player in team history. We always want to do that thing to where we say it's the same old skins, right? This is going to happen again, that we're going to have something exciting. It's going to be taken away from us. It's cliche to say it's different this year, but it is different. Everything is different now with a completely new organization. So it's okay to say that Jayden Daniels can be the best quarterback in this organization's history. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'll say this. He's going to win Rookie of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's going to do that.
I'll bet that.
I
was saying it before we even picked it. Thanks for joining the hype bus, gents.
And it's okay, right? It's okay to say that at this point, even if we get our heart broken and something bad happens. It's okay to be vulnerable once again and put ourselves out there, and maybe we get disappointed, but I believe in it. And I believe in it so much, I'm going to even say this. If he doesn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year, I quit the show. I quit Ref the District if he doesn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
You have a sipper over there?
I got water, friend. I got good old-fashioned.
Are you trying to leave the show? Like,
was that your
Are you guys not with me?
Are you have something to tell us, Stoner?
This is how Stoner's lost it for
now,
1K, by the way.
Now all of a sudden you all are backing off. Nathan said we're going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Oh, we got tornadoes here. Sorry, that's all the.
Yeah, there are some tornadoes. So those watching from Maryland, please be safe. I'm not backing off the Offensive Rookie of the Year talk.
And I'm putting my balls out on the line, and now all of you guys are like, I don't know about that, Stoner.
Sorry, Nathan,
but
I happen to
like my balls. Now you're going too far.
I'm not putting them on the line for Offensive Rookie of the Year, bro. After 2 weeks ago,
I'm with Grimjaw here. I think Stoner's just trying to plan his retirement. It is something. Yeah. It is something that Stoner and I talk about usually behind the scenes. Is just like, hey, how close to retirement are you? And he's going to move and do all this stuff and blah blah blah. And I think this is just his out. He's just like, hey, January of 26 is when I can retire from my job. Maybe I retire from Ref the District and have a full year off if he doesn't get Rookie of the Year.
You can't get rid of me that easily. Now I'm going to turn it around on you all. You all trying to get me to do that.
I just can't wait till he wins Offensive the Rookie of the Year and we can play back all of our takes. Again, right. I've been saying it. I said it several times during the March Madness QB edition.
But you're not willing to put anything on the line there. You're not willing.
No, but I'm also not a huge gambler. So there's a reason why when we do our dollar, it's fake money. It's not dollar. It's not a dollar. It's a dollar because I do not like to part with my money. You know this from when we did when we were stationed in Germany together. I did not bet unless I was almost certain that I was going to win.
That's true.
Do not part me with my money. That is not.
But you guys have said it, Nathan. You've said it multiple times. Why are you kind of backing off now in terms of I'm not putting my money on it if I don't fully believe in it? So if you don't fully believe in it, then why keep saying it?
There's so many different factors that go.
Sure, of course there is.
Yeah, like
Of
Caleb
course there's
Williams.
he's better than Caleb
Again,
Williams.
much longer than you two. I've been saying that he is the most exciting player in the NFL draft, to include Caleb Williams. Okay, I said that. Before drafting him, I wasn't even a Jaden Daniels guy, right? I took JJ McCarthy. I took Drake May over Jaden Daniels, but I said constantly that he was the most exciting player, and he is my odds-on favorite. If I were to go to Bet Online and put money down on this, I would put money on Jaden Daniels.
Okay, all right, let's do it
because he's the odds-on favorite. All right, I'll tell you. I'll openly here. I give you permission to use Ref the District money.
I see what you did.
I give you permission to use Ref the District money. Put $100 down on Jaden Daniels winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. What is his odds right now?
I don't know, but my account is felted because I made too many bad bets.
This just turned in from Nathan not being a gambling man to put $100 on a thing. Right
to be fair, I'm not putting my money down. I'm putting.
I see what Stoner did. He got
Nathan.
you to do that by saying what you said and turning it into a question. That's how he got you to do this. I saw it the whole way.
Here's Trev. Here's Nathan. It was a 180. He did a 180 like that. He said, I'm not putting my money down. I'll put $100 down.
On the thing.
No. So listen to yourself again. I said, I'm not putting my money down. I'm putting $100 of Ref the District money down.
Okay, fine. That we'll use on Stoner's retirement if he doesn't win, right?
Gus by saying, do not like Stoner making these predictions with an E3 jersey.
All right. Well, how about this? By training camp, there will be a new jersey hanging behind me. And I'll give you a hint. I'm not going to tell you which jersey it's going to be, but I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
His initials are JD, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. All right. But that's what's going to be up there because I believe in the guy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm wearing his number 5 right now.
There you go. Oh, well, that's Tress Way jersey. Tress Way who just rolled over and gave him the number without a fight.
I mean, it is what it is here. I'm trying to find the Offensive the Rookie Year odds on Bet Online, and I'm not able to find that right at this second. I'm not going to spend too much time doing it. Yeah, it's a much deeper dive. So that's something we'll have to do. But like I said, it's fine. Let's move on to another player here. Now, Stoner said Jaden Daniels is the only one.
He's the only one.
And we talked about Terry McLaurin, a wide receiver. We'll quickly stick with wide receivers. Does Jahan Dotson even have a chance after the slump? I feel like that's just a no-go right off the bat.
Yeah, and it's no disrespect to him as a player because I still think he's marvelous. We saw it in his first season. But I do think these past couple of seasons of slumps have just kind of pelted him down too far. I
mean, you're talking about a receiver who's had 500 yards each of his first 2 seasons. I just don't feel like that's a pace in today's
But how old is he?
NFL that's going to do it. I mean, he's young.
19,
he's not
20?
19 young. He's 23 years old right now, but he's
okay.
So if Jahan Dotson isn't, we're not going to even bother listening to the rest of the wide receivers here. So let's move to the running backs. Brian Robinson, couple strong years to start off his career. Hasn't broken 1,000 yards rushing, though. NFL moving away from the running back. Is it possible that he can top John Riggins rushing because John Riggins only has 7,400 yards?
Yeah, not happening. How I feel about Brian Robinson. Right?
I mean, why did you draft him in the second round?
He's a jag.
Third
I believe he's a
he's
a fine player, but he's just another running back.
And I think that got diminished even more when you brought Austin Eckler in because we're not going to be a run heavy offense.
Yeah. I do think they're going to be run heavy offense, but I think that it's going to be split a little bit. When I list these off here, these these running backs make me feel a lot more proud than when I was listing off those passing leaders. You got John Riggins, Clinton Portis, Larry Brown, Stephen Davis, and Alfred Morris.
Yeah.
Let's go Stephen Davis, baby.
Alfred Morris, man. Alf was I do wish we would have kept him around for longer. I think that he was definitely a Shanahan runner. So, I mean, there was that. Yeah. But, I mean, 1,600 yards his rookie year. And then I feel like once Shanahan left, Gruden just didn't really use him the way that you should have used him because he was a fun player to watch. Of course, some of the greats there, John Riggins, Larry Brown, and then Clinton Portis was a clown that you just had to love and was an outstanding runner as well.
Yeah, so, not happening. Not getting anywhere near those records. I mean, how are you going to do that when you only play 4 seasons in Washington?
Yeah.
That's right.
He's only playing. Yeah. He's going to be an Antonio Gibson. He'll be gone after his 4 years are up. You're
not wrong. I mean, to get on this list, I feel like you need to have something like a Derrick Henry type, career, where Derrick Henry's first 4 or 5, actually his first 4 seasons were kind of rough until that last one, 490 yards, 744, and just breaking 1,000 his 3rd season in. But then he had 1,500 yards, then his 2,000 yard season. So, I mean, but I mean, you're talking, that's a rarity these days. How about Christian McCaffrey? I mean, this is another player who these are your greats right here. In this day and age, McCaffrey. I don't know why I can't spell his name right now.
Oh, Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah.
Just look up Luke McCaffrey and then link it to Christian McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey,
maybe he's having a trouble spelling McCaffrey. So.
Yeah. So I'm bringing these players up, these non-Washington players up right now, just to give you an idea of how difficult it is. So Christian McCaffrey, who is, in my opinion, one of the top 2 running backs. I literally just listed the 2 that I think are there right now that are playing the game right now, Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey. Derrick Henry is actually above the mark for John Riggins. Christian McCaffrey is not. At 6,100 yards, if he played all of his years in Washington, he would be the 3rd most productive running back by rushing yards.
Yeah,
that is how difficult this is going to be for a player to be able to surpass these records for Washington. You really have to be special. And while I do believe Terry McLaurin is the reason why people can come and watch the games, I agree with Stoner about Brian Robinson. I think that he's a good player, but I don't necessarily think that he's not why you're putting butts in seats.
He's a good player. He's an important player on your team, the guy who's going to have the most rushes if he stays healthy. And that's fine. But there are plenty of guys out there who are just like him. He's not special. He's not a game changer. He's not somebody that defenses have to scheme against. He's not that kind of a player, right? But he's still important to the success of your offense because he's your number 1 running back and he's going to carry the ball the most out of anybody. I'm not saying he sucks. I'm just saying that he's a guy that is not somebody that defenses have to scheme for. So he's a jag, and you need jags. I'm not saying you don't need them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think obviously jag has some negative connotation to it, but if you wanted to look at it objectively, you answer this question for yourself. Will Brian Robinson get a second contract with Washington?
No.
And if the answer is no, then you have your answer as far as to whether or not he is a jag, because what jag is just another guy, somebody who can be replaced. And you give second contracts to guys who can't be replaced.
Yeah.
And Brian Robinson's production, I read it off earlier. We're talking about how he has 2 seasons now at less than 800 yards. That's replaceable.
Would either of you guys, if C-Rod, if Chris Rodriguez got the same opportunities that Brian Robinson is getting, would you guys say that C-Rod shouldn't be in there and that Brian Robinson is a much better running back? Or if C-Rod got in there and got the ball 18 to 22 times a game, I think you'd see the same production as you get from Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I think there's a percentage lost. There's a reason why he's the third running back and not the first running back. So I think you would see some production and you might have a couple good breakout games, but you'll see over the course of a 17-game season, you'll see some loss there. But we're not talking about replacing him with Chris Rodriguez. We're talking about finding another, running back one to replace him.
Okay.
I'd be interested to see what offense he ran at Alabama his last year, because he carried the ball 271 times for 1,343 yards. So it's kind of, he's obviously probably capable of making a 1,000-yard rusher, but I just want to know what kind of offense that came in and see if that will happen this year. But I don't think he can break.
He should have been a 1,000-yard rusher last year if Eric Bieniemy didn't throw the ball 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Some of those games were mine. He threw the ball 55 straight times against Chicago. He threw the ball in the first half 19 straight times against Denver. In the first half, 19 straight throws against it. Anyway, getting on my Eric Bieniemy rant.
Yeah,
but
if he had worry about that one.
If he had an offense that was a little more balanced, Brian Robinson probably gets to 1,000 yards last year. And we may be talking about him in a different light, but he didn't get as many opportunities as he should have. But still, he's not going to get that second contract, especially because he's a running back. I mean, running backs barely get second contracts anymore. You have to be a top 5 running. Saquon Barkley didn't get a second contract.
A very special runner and not sticking with the Giants. So, pretty interesting. So this is really, is there anybody on defense we feel could end up getting to be one of the greats? Since we've talked about our offensive guys, for instance, Darrell Green is the interceptions leader at 54. Just don't see anybody surpassing that. By the way, Sammy Baugh with 31 at number 3 on this list. Kind of a special player, that Sammy Baugh. And when I look at the defense, even though I have a Jonathan Allen jersey here, just signed off the side to me here, I just don't see anybody on this defense who can surpass the defensive greats that we've had in Washington.
Yeah, because unfortunately, that's a high bar. Whereas quarterback is a low bar. Defensively, there are some names out there that you just can't touch. I mean, names like Chase Young and Montez Sweat. No, but there are those names out there that you just can't touch and you never be able to. I think right now, I believe, didn't Jonathan Allen break the record for most sacks by a defensive tackle?
Yeah, Gus with that one. J.A. does already have the most sacks for an interior defensive lineman in team history.
Yeah.
So, Mike, that's great.
Yeah, but,
what?
I mean, how many?
You're putting him over Dexter Mann? Dexter Manley, Charles Mann, anybody over these?
No. The question was, is he a next great? Not who we putting him over. He's a next great. He already holds a record with Washington, so he's a great.
Okay.
I'm not saying he's over Dexter Manley, but he's added to the list of greats now, right? No?
Will he get his number up in the ring of
the rafters? And that's the Lux questions here, right? And I think this is how we'll talk about how we'll finish out this conversation here. Are there any players currently worth the Ring of Fame when they retire here in Washington? We agree Terry McLaurin. Seems like we're out on Brian Robinson. Jonathan Allen?
No.
Not yet. We don't know.
You're going to give it to Terry McLaurin, but not Jonathan Allen.
No.
Yes, because Terry did 4 straight seasons for 1,000 yards. Jonathan Allen had a couple of some good years, but nothing eye-popping, but enough to sign him an extension. I don't know. What does it take to get in the Ring of Fame? Honestly, what does it take? Do you have to be that great, or do you have to be
Unfortunately,
semi-great
that
and great
bar
for
is
the
pretty low as
community?
well, right?
That's what I'm
there's
saying. So what do you
look
have to
who's
do to
not
get in the Ring
up
of
there.
Fame?
Think about guys who are not up there yet in that Ring of Fame, and then that'll tell you, whoa, you look at Chris Cooley, right? Chris Cooley is a top 3 tight end in team history. He's not even up there yet.
Right. So what's it
Probably
take?
will be. But so you have to be way up there in order to get into that Ring of Fame. So I mean, if Jonathan Allen stays here another 3 or 4 years and keeps doing what he's doing, then probably.
Maybe.
This is a guy who not
has,
just 2 years ago, I think it was, that we talked about being one of the top 5 interior defensive linemen in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was voted into the NFL top 100 as the highest rated, Washington player. And here we're saying that he doesn't deserve it, but Terry McLaurin does.
Yeah, 4 straight seasons, 1,000 yards. I think that's pretty
highest sack rate for an entire interior defensive lineman.
Well, that should come with Jonathan Allen's name and pedigree from Alabama. That's expected. Terry McLaurin was a special teams, supposedly scouted player for us, punt returner in college, wide receiver 3 or 4 in college, became wide receiver 1 with us, and played with 15,000 different quarterbacks and still managed to get 1,000 yards for 4 straight seasons.
Yeah, I'm with you, Trev. I'm with you.
He's got to be up there.
I mean, there isn't anybody else.
Right. As I say, there's no other receiver compared to that or even come close to that. So out of receivers, he has to be up there. As of right now, current players, he's the closest one.
And Jaden Daniels when he retires.
Well, if you're going to throw Jaden Daniels up there, then you at least got to give Tressway his flowers. He's likely
Taylor Heineke should be up there.
Okay,
he almost beat Tom Brady.
He
almost beat Tom Brady.
I cannot
during
even
COVID at that too,
that. My goodness, I don't even have a segue off of that crud that was just mentioned there. Why don't you join us here when we get to the cool down? Make sure you get the questions in. We got mailbag time. We've already got a few questions in the books. Let's see some more. My man finishing out the game, bringing up Taylor Heineke. I cannot with you. I cannot, but I can absolutely answer some of these questions that we have here for mailbag time in the cool down. I'll try to do a better job pushing out mailbag so that way those of you who listen on your favorite audio platform or follow us on other social media can get your questions heard there. But we do appreciate everybody who joins us live when we do this every Wednesday night here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at 7:30 Eastern for coming in and being a part of the conversation, as it makes things a lot of fun for us. Now, the first one here is from Brian. Will you guys please be here for the New England game? Please.
Be where? In New England?
I believe it's a home game.
Oh, so what? What does be here
or
mean?
actually be there?
Be at the game. Will we be at the game for the New England game?
Well, we have to pick a game that we're all gonna go to. That we're gonna have the Perrys fly in and all that and have a game. So we just got to figure out when that is.
And I will say it's going to be unlikely for the Perrys to make it out.
Oh, it is? I thought
it's going to be unlikely. I want to try to be there for a game, but I will say, on top of the fact that it might be unlikely to get us all out there, it is very unlikely if I do make the trip for a game, it's going to be a preseason game against the New England Patriots.
Sorry.
It's just probably not going to be in the books for that. If I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it for a real game. I'm not going to make it for a preseason game. I'm already putting aside some money, so when they make the playoffs, that's the opportunity for me to come out there. So I am putting some money away for that, but not going to make it back for a preseason game. Not for me.
All right, fair enough.
Albert Hainsworth.
Yeah, someone's joking in the comment section about some of the greats that we've had here. So Stoner saying that we all have to be there. So I ruined it. So no, I meant broadcasting, so I don't have to listen to NBC. Brian clarifying there. We tend to skip preseason games when we do our live
we do
play-by-play. We
right?
try to do one as a break-in. Is that going to be the one we're going to do?
Might be.
Yeah, might as well.
Might be the New England game. Which was that? The third game?
I believe it is. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
That's always because Drake made Jaden Daniels' narrative, and they're each going to play 2 series and sit the rest.
They're probably not even going to play anything. That's if it's the final game, it's not going to be there.
So why do we really want to go to that game then if they're not even going to dress or play?
Calling the game is going to be the thing there. So yeah. So, but all right. So we'll be here for the 17 regular season games, and we'll probably pick one of the preseason games to call. So let's move on from that question from Brian, and let's move on to Gus Bus here, who wants us to talk preseason. Please talk about the recently released preseason schedule. Hopefully we see at least 2 drives of Jaden versus May, the nationally televised final preseason matchup. Not going to happen.
They won't play.
Not going to happen.
Drake May might play because he's battling for Brissett, but Jaden Daniels for sure is not playing.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a crazy statement that I think might happen in that Jaden Daniels, and you know what? Watching the NBA playoffs, I have to watch myself every time I say Jaden Daniels' name because I want to say Jaden McDaniels from the Timberwolves, right? And I keep every time I see the dude on the Timberwolves, I'm like, Jaden's playing basketball now too. But here's what I think might happen because they have 2 those joint practices, right, with the Dolphins and Jets. They play the Dolphins and Jets in the preseason games. Jaden Daniels might not play a single snap in preseason because he's going to play all those plays again in those joint practices. He's going to play all those plays, the joint practice against the Jets. And the third preseason game, none of the starters play. He might not play 1 snap in the preseason, especially if they like what they see, especially if they like what he's been doing.
I saw it in the comment section earlier, right? Talking about Terry McLaurin and his breakout opening game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And it came as a bit of a surprise because during the preseason, you didn't see very much of Terry McLaurin. They knew what they did in Terry McLaurin. And so maybe they do the same thing with Jaden Daniels here is they know that they've got a guy that don't throw him out there and, start him week 1 and carry everybody by surprise. I don't think you ice him, Gus Bus. I think that, like Stoner said, is you are seeing him in these workout, these joint sessions that you don't necessarily need to see him in the game time situation. I do think we'll see him in the first 2 games. I don't think we're going to see him in the third game. I think that third game is still going to be all of the backups. This is where we're going to see some Sam Hartman and whether or not he's going to make the roster. That's what you're going to see.
He's making his roster. We ain't released Jake Fromm for nothing. He making the roster.
What about
great hair?
What about the other guy, the
Jeff
third
Driscoll,
guy?
He gone.
Yeah, Driscoll.
He gone. He's just the camp.
He's a Florida guy, so be easy. All right, take it easy. Don't be so mean to him. Okay,
I
like
30 different
teams. Florida guy. Yeah,
we even saw him
play tight end too, by the way. So maybe he plays a little tight end too.
Yeah, maybe he pulls the Thomas switch. By the way, Thomas finding his way into San Francisco. So best of luck to
great fit
him out there.
Great fit for Logan in San Francisco.
Earlier,
he healthy all year, so
probably not.
He's also the third option, so it's not going to matter.
And he's number 48 right now, so I'm good on that.
Yeah. So Grimjaw earlier was responding to some conversations when we were talking about Joe Witt Jr. in the defense, and some people are talking about Jaden Daniels becoming the Micah Parsons of this defense. And there was some good discussions there, but Grimjaw kind of asking this question that I wanted to pose to everybody. How would Dan Quinn not have a plan for Micah Parsons after he coached him the past 3 years? So let's change it slightly to also just ask, what is Dan Quinn's plan for Micah Parsons?
Easily take him out the game. Not like literally with an injury, but like make him not effective at all whatsoever. Double team him,
Chop
do
block.
some moves that chop block, do some things that Micah Parsons does not like or does not handle very well, get that man flustered. Dan Quinn, as our head coach, going against this former team twice a year, is the biggest cheat code we have of all of the entire season, just because of where he came from and all that. So he's got a plan. Yeah, how do you not have a plan? Joe Witt Jr. too. He coached. I mean, like they both, Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. They're ready.
The good point here being made by Gus is that this is the offensive coordinator's job to have a plan. So Dan Quinn doesn't have a plan.
Dan Quinn definitely has a plan that he can implement to Cliff.
Oh, I definitely think those will talk. Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, and Cliff Kingsbury are going to have a sit down and be like, here's Micah Parsons. Here's what we can tell you about how we used him to make him effective. And this is how you can combat that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can plan all you want, but he's Micah Parsons, and he's going to blow up all those plans.
I think this is perfect from Grimjaw answering his own question here. You just run directly at him. Remember Arizona, San Francisco, and Green Bay game versus Dallas last year. And I think it's important. Micah Parsons is an amazing player. He is a much better pass rusher, in my opinion, than he is a run stopper. Not that he's not that's not say he's an ineffective run stopper, but the plan for this should not be the Eric Bieniemy drop back 55 times. This should be we're running Brian Robinson, we're running Austin Eckler, we're running Chris Rodriguez. Just go right at him and try to avoid the amount of time that Micah Parsons is working around this offensive line to find your franchise quarterback. So that would be my take on that as well. Brian here again with another question. We are prepared for JD5 to be a boon or bust. What if he's neither? What if he is Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Alex Smith, or someone else?
He is going to be Jaden Daniels. That's who he's going to be. He's not going to be Baker. He's not going to be Deshaun. He's not going to be Allen. Now, he might have some of those traits from all three in his game, but he's not going to be those players.
But what if he's going to be that type of quarterback? What if he's?
Well, those are all different types. Baker Mayfield is different.
No, I don't mean
Watson and Alex Smith is different than both too. So,
but I think the point is guys who are drafted high, but are not.
They're not all-time greats, right? They're good.
They're good.
If we can get that season Deshaun Watson threw for 4,000 yards out of Jaden Daniels. Okay, if he comes in and does check down Alex Smith, but we're still 6-3 like we were in Alex before he broke his leg, cool. If he's Baker Mayfield, he's going to be on 4 or 5 different teams. So he's just going to be Jaden Daniels. I don't like these three quarterbacks that.
If he's Baker Mayfield, Deshaun, Alex Smith, that's a bust to me. You can't be that as the number 2 pick. No. You can't be that. I mean. No. These are all guys who Baker and Deshaun are on their second teams. Alex Smith played for 3 teams.
Baker's on his third
team. That's right. Baker's on his third team as the number 1 overall pick. That's a bust for Cleveland when that happens. And you don't. I mean, there's 2 Cleveland bust on here as Baker Mayfield as a bust for them as a draft pick, and Deshaun Watson as a trade target has been an absolute wash for them as well, as he's not been the same Deshaun Watson that Houston, was excited about. Houston fans were excited, they thought that they had a franchise QB, some injuries, and then the allegations with the massages sidelined him, and now he hasn't been the same player.
Now he's hurt, trying to come back from the shoulder injury.
Nathan brings up that standard all the time about, are you going to give him a second contract? And none of those guys got second contracts from their original team.
Oh.
Maybe Alex Smith did with San Fran. But, I mean, Baker was signed by Cleveland. He didn't get a second contract with Cleveland.
He was signed by
He was drafted by Cleveland. He didn't get that second contract. So that's kind of your bar to at least be a franchise guy. But as a number 2 overall pick, I mean, Baker was a number 1 overall pick. Alex Smith was a number 1 overall pick. Deshaun was top 10. I don't remember.
No, exactly. He was back. He wasn't that high.
He was around 10. But the point is, none of them became their franchise quarterback when they were drafted.
No.
Jaden McDaniels has to be the franchise guy who has to get that to a contract. The Jalen Hurts contract, the Herbert, all those guys. He's got to get those.
He was 10th overall, by the way.
I nailed it. 10th.
Nice.
It's just a guess. I thought it was like 8th, but still, the point is,
he was 12th overall.
Oh, okay. The point is, he's got to be special and get that $250 million contract, or else it's a bust. Plain and simple. If he has a decent career like a Kirk Cousins here, that's not good enough for a number 2 overall pick. So anything less than that, anything less than a second contract is a bust.
Yep.
Yeah. This was a conversation we had before the draft pick when I was high on JJ McCarthy, and I mentioned how he could be like an Alex Smith, and people were telling me that just isn't good enough. Steady hand, not exciting, takes you to playoffs, but not a QB that you see as a difference maker, and that wasn't enough. And so if this is the kind of player or career that Jaden Daniels has, then I have to agree with those people that isn't good enough. That would be a disappointment. It's not a bust like Stoner threw out, but it would be disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of nitpicking.
I'm not going to call him a bust if he brings us to the playoffs, 3 out of 6 years or something like that. Whatever Alex Smith did with Kansas City.
So if he doesn't get a second contract, he's a bust. That's what stuff.
But he wasn't drafted by Kansas.
I would agree with that. If he doesn't make a second contract with Washington, I would consider that a bust.
Yeah.
100%. All right. JG here. Will the Commanders dip back into free agency to address cornerback and left tackle? If so, who are your favorite targets?
I most definitely think they'll dip back into it because you got all these cuts coming once training camp is over. Probably won't be until training camp, but yes, for sure. Donovan Smith is a name. I think Ben Standick put in his report as a possibility. Old Tampa Bay left tackle, Super Bowl champion. He holds a lot, but he's still kind of relatively young and still pretty good offensive lineman. Cornerback, I think we're going to have to roll with what we got.
I think they're kind of okay at cornerback.
Yeah, I think we don't have top names, but I think
you don't have a Sauce Gardner type guy, but I think we got players who can play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
I think they have to. They always will. Even the teams, if a team is set at corner and left tackle, if somebody shakes loose from another organization for contract reasons or whatever, you got to think about picking them up.
For sure.
So they definitely will.
Yeah. I don't think they go for a corner, but I do think that we can expect another tackle to be signed.
Yeah.
And one does find their way onto the free agency. I don't have a name though for JG, mainly because I'm not sure who is kind of on the roster who's going to be cut, right? I'm not looking at all the other 31 rosters and seeing who's a guy who looks like they're going to be cut. And because I will say this, I wouldn't be too hyped about who they pick up off of this. Okay. Right. They're going to,
as long as they're obviously better than Cornelius Lucas. Don't bring somebody in who has to compete with Cornelius Lucas to be left tackle. We need somebody who is going to be left tackle and then Cornelius Lucas.
That's what they should have done 4 months ago.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's now you're setting. You might be setting the bar too high, but I mean, people are really down on Charles Leno, and this is the kind of player you're going to get here. And I don't even think the guy that they're going to sign is necessarily going to be the starting left tackle.
Yeah,
it's just a left tackle to shore up the, who they have here. So I don't think that would be there. A lot of people loving Stephon Gilmore. If he finds his way off, that'd be interesting.
I think a very underrated free agent signing was Michael Davis, the corner from the Chargers. I think it's very underrated. He's a guy who's probably going to be, cornerback 2 or 1, however you want to label. He's going to be a starter. He's going to be out there at the first team. And I think that's a sneaky, underappreciated signing in the offseason. So keep an eye on him, and he may be the reason why they don't go get a corner.
Sure.
If they do go get a corner, like a Gilmore or whatever, then you can probably, write his script on his way out the door being, he's not the guy. But I like him. I think he's going to be pretty good.
Could still be the second guy. I mean, you just put Benjamin St. Juste and Forbes on the back burner.
Yeah, that's true. Might have to do that too.
All right. Last question for the night here from Deluxe. How many all-time greats does one team have at once? Even great teams only have a max of 2 to 3 concurrently. Agree or disagree?
And I think he also clarified that his all-time greats, he means like on their team, not all-time NFL greats. But
at one current time, and I mean, you look at maybe even just like all pros, right? Or decade teams.
Yeah.
And you're right. You're not going to have, and we've talked about this a lot, you don't have a roster full of the blue chippers, of these guys who are, clearly the best in the league. You have 1 or 2, 3, I think would be great. Like that'd be outstanding if you had 3 legit top 5 guys in their position. But then the rest of the players you got to have good to great, or even just serviceable.
Yeah. And even if you look at the best teams like the Chiefs, I mean, they probably have four guys who are team all-time greats, right? They've got, at the positions, at quarter, at tight end, at offensive lineman, at defensive tackle, and at corner. So they've got some guys who are going to be in their all-time greats for their franchise, but they're winning Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit different. But usually most teams, you're right, they have 3 guys probably who are all-time greats for that organization at one time. Not usually more than that, but we haven't had like 3 or 4 all-time greats at one time in forever. I mean, even you can consider Ryan Kerrigan one of those, right? But who did Kerrigan have at the same time? Maybe Santana and Cooley, maybe.
When we're talking all-time greats, I'm not even putting those guys in the top 15 of their position during their playing time.
No, we're talking about for the organization, not for the entire NFL.
Okay, so because I'm looking at it as like all-time greats, NFL all-time greats. Like this guy is going to be wearing a jacket 5 years or sometime after his deal. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Franchise greats, all-time NFL greats is a really high bar. Okay. That's okay. Thanks for the clarification. You did mention that. Yeah. I mean, Ryan Kerrigan was up there. Santana Moss, Cooley, Clinton Portis. Those guys, there's 3 to 4 guys that played at the same time.
And those guys played on fairly decent teams, not big time winning teams, but around here they played on winning teams when they were 8-8 or 9-7. Those were like big time seasons around here.
I think this goes back to how we were talking about Tress Way being one of Washington's best players over the last decade. And we're literally talking about a punter being one of the best players, the all-time greats. Mm-hmm. And that was our best player in the last decade. That's how bad Washington has had it, both roster wise and season wise. That's pretty, I think that says something when we're talking about, they had 4 or 5 all-time greats or Washington all-time greats on that, and their best record was a 10-6.
Yeah.
So okay, so I see somebody starred one last question. So I said that was the last question, but somebody somebody
right,
put
one more.
Trev's always a rebel, always cool.
I am sorry. I missed you guys.
Code Talker did get this in before we hit break. So for the panel, Lamar Jackson hasn't won a conference championship or a Super Bowl. So is he a franchise quarterback?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely a franchise quarterback, but it is kind of getting to that point almost to where you start to say, okay, look, you gotta win something. You got to get to that point.
You got to win a playoff game because he has won MVP.
Yeah, and he's won a playoff game.
Yeah.
But he's got to get to the point to where he's winning multiple playoff games, getting to a Super Bowl at the minimum. But a franchise quarterback is different than, all-time greats, too, right? He's a franchise quarterback.
I think that's what's going to end up being the difference maker for Lamar Jackson, right? Is if he – but Dan Marino went to one Super Bowl, and he's considered one of the all-time greats.
Mm-hmm.
So Lamar Jackson can't be there?
Right?
What's that?
Was
second season, I think.
Second? Okay.
Yeah.
Lamar, he's a franchise quarterback for sure.
Yeah, that's a different bar. It's a different bar. Yeah. Franchise quarterback is somebody that you can put in there and who can get you to the playoffs and hopefully further. But you always have that chance. You don't have to worry about that position, so on and so forth. Terry McLaurin's a franchise wide receiver. You don't have to worry about wide receiver one and so on and so forth. But, yeah, Lamar is definitely a franchise quarterback.
Got that second contract pretty big.
Yeah, he did. He did. Contract. He certainly got that.
I think that's probably a bigger factor when you're talking. I think longevity and level of play. Winning is difficult in the NFL. When Stoner brought up, Lamar Jackson having to win a Super Bowl, I think that's a lofty situation for him to do, and that's why I brought up Dan Marino. Went to one Super Bowl, didn't win it, never went back to another Super Bowl, still considered one of the all-time greats because his level of play for as long as he played, especially with one single team, makes him by far one of not just a franchise quarterback, but an all-time great. Lamar Jackson, absolutely a franchise quarterback. And I think Washington would be lucky if Jaden Daniels could have a similar type career, couple MVPs and exciting play. It would be fantastic. Now, I would love to have maybe even just Trent Dilfer here who can just win a Super Bowl in our lifetime, but I'd much rather consistent, exciting play. At least that's me. We try to be consistent and exciting. We are consistent by being live every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button for us. Subscribe to the channel. It helps other people find it. Make sure you leave a comment, rating, and review if you're listening to this on your favorite audio platform. We're Ref the District, Nathan Perry, Stoner, Trev here on Ref the District, part of the Believe Network, brought to you by Bet Online and Don't Sleep Energy. And until next time,
Offensive Rookie of the Year, or I'm quitting.
Be a fan.